Welcome back. We're going to start talking about file storage now. If you go into the console, you should be able to find storage out here in the sidebar. And by default, the storage also has rules, just like Firestore has rules. And it's going to disallow every request by default. So you can, of course, enable the processing of every single request if you want to. That is considered to be not very secure. If you did watch last video, we can use authentication for our rules here. I think we should just allow reading and writing of storage if the user is signed in. So this is going to be a very basic, but at least a little bit secure setup. I'm just going to write if request.auth.token is not equals null and request.auth UID is not equals null. And we're going to publish this. So this is where we ended off last time. We made the register, sign in and sign out methods. And I'm just going to minimize this and open up the imports because we're going to import storage now. So storage is separate from Firestore. So Firestore is a document-oriented database, but it is not intended to store files like pictures and whatnot. It's only intended for the data types that you find inside of Firestore. There is also a third storage mechanism called the real-time DB. That is a completely separate thing. We're just going to talk about the storage right now. So import Firebase /compat/storage here. And just like last time, we're going to the constructor here. And now we can write this storage equals Firebase storage, like this. Don't forget the open and closing parentheses. And just accept here, create field storage. I'm just gonna place it next to the others. And I'm gonna make it not private. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make a method that can fetch photos and a method that can write a new photo. So the idea is that the signed in user should have an avatar. And this little avatar is like a picture of them, so they can update the picture of themselves. And of course, we should also be able to retrieve that picture of them. So once they open up the application, it goes to the storage and then it finds the user's avatar. So first off, let's just make a method called getImage. GetImage of signed in user. I'm going to call it that. That's a little more specific. And this getImage of signed in user should just take the ID of the currently signed in user. And we can always find the ID of the signed in user by just calling this auth current user UID. And we're going to use that for fetching the image. So we can find the image by ID by calling this storage.ref, stands for reference, and it wants a path here. So we're going to make a folder called avatars. And inside of this folder, there's going to be a child with the ID of the signed in user. So I think this is the most simple approach to making it work. So inside of the child here, the path is just going to be the ID of the currently signed in user. This auth current user UID. And the UID can be string or undefined, but if we just concatenate it with an empty string, we're not going to get any complaints. So we don't actually get the image just by calling this. We get the image by calling getDownloadURL. Let me just scroll down so you can actually see the docs here. The getDownloadURL is a promise of a string. Since it is a promise, we can just await this promise here and make the function asynchronous. And I'm going to make an instance variable for that image. So I'm going to make something called currently signed in user avatar URL. I know it's a long name, and I'm just going to say that this is a string, and down here we're going to say this currently signed in user avatar URL, and now we get the image here. And because there is no default value here, it's going to complain. And I think I would like to have some kind of a placeholder for the image. So when the user is not signed in, there's just like a silhouette. So we can just find a silhouette on Google Images. Maybe a PNG image would be good so it doesn't have a background. Yeah, this is me. And just paste this here. So by default, when the user does not have an image, the image URL is just going to be the URL for the person silhouette here. So once the user is logging in, we're calling the method to find their image, get image of signed in user. And I'm also going to make a method for updating the image. We can just call that method updateUserImage. This storage ref, this auth current user UID concatenate with empty string, put. And now we're gonna put some new data in the same place. So we can just call it image here, image. So we're gonna call this method from our user interface. And of course, when we upload a new image, we would want the existing image that we have on the user interface to also update. So let's just give this one a variable const upload task await, make the function asynchronous. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna call upload task reference get download URL. And of course, this one is also a promise, just like last time we called it up here. So we can say this currently signed in user avatar URL, and then take the reference from the upload task and then use that to get the download URL. Just like that, this is also a reference that is being returned here. If we hover over it, it's going to say firebase.storage.reference. And now we're ready to go inside of our HTML and put some images in there. I think naturally the image should reside right next to the email of the user. So just make a tag here, img, and then just write source and file service and image of signed user. Currently signed in user avatar URL. Jesus Christ, man, I made such a long name that I can't even recall it. We can just see what it looks like right now. And if we open up the application, it looks like this right now because the image is gigantic. So let's just modify the style of the image. Style, max, height, let's say 60 pixels. I know that people say, oh, pixels, they don't modify to the size of the application, so you should have something that is relative. Yeah, we can always make it different. I just want something that isn't overwhelmingly big. And now we're going to add a trigger to upload a new image, because right now we have no way of uploading a new image. So let's just make it such that when you click the avatar, it's going to ask you which file you want to upload, and then it triggers the upload, and then you also, in the same function, update the image. So let's go ahead and add that to the HTML here. So typically when we want to make uploads, like a file upload, we would use the input tag head here. And then inside of the input tag, we would say like type file. So if we click the file picker here, we get this little UI. But I prefer it to just be directly on the image. So what we can do is we can add an attribute here, hidden. And we should also give this one an ID, file input, because now we can give the image tag here the behavior of the input tag down here. So the way we do that is we're going to write click file input, because that's the ID we just gave it here, dot click. So the behavior of the image is now that once you click it, it is the same as clicking the input down here. And the input down here is hidden. So, it's kind of a hacky way of doing it, but it gets the job done. So click this, and now we can upload an image. And obviously, we need to make sure that we're actually triggering the upload method. So right now, we do have a file picker where we can pick a new image, but now we need to take that image and pass it into the method that updates the image inside of our Firebase storage. The way that we do that is we use the attribute called change. So once the file picker here, because that is still what the input does, is it is the file picker. Once the value of that changes, which means when we select a new file in the file picker, we get to call fire service dot image update user image. That's what I called it. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add event here. So the event here is not actually the image itself. So I'll just modify the signature here. I'm just gonna call it event. And now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna write const img equals event target files. So as you can see, there's a bunch of different methods here on the event. And we're looking for the one that just finds the first file in an array of files. So hypothetically speaking, the file uploader could also upload multiple files, but we're just interested in the user uploading a single file, and then we are getting the single file as the first one in the array of possible files. So let's just open up the UI here, and now we're gonna see the final result. Click the avatar, and I have some screenshots here. I hope there's not any of this that is too embarrassing. Yeah, I can't even see what it is. It's amazing. So now we've successfully been uploading an image, and in here we can actually see that the image we just uploaded is residing not inside of the avatars. It's because we forgot to actually put the avatar / user ID beforehand. So if we go into our method that uploads the image here, we should actually write child here, and then we should write ref here, avatars. And I think now would be exactly the way we wanted to upload this image. Yes. Refresh. And now we get to have it here, right? And if we go into avatars, here we have the image. So just like with authentication, this is a really, really short and compact video that just showcases what you can do with this part of Firebase. So use this as inspiration for building some other features in your applications. Maybe you can start adding some avatar for every message or something like that. File storage is something that is super important to have in a wide range of applications. So it's really, really powerful that there is something built into this backend as a service tool suite that does this for us. Building something like file storage can be very time consuming and also very hard to work with from a programming standpoint. If you use a relational database, you would have to use blob files for that. And then when you want to use an image inside of your UI, you would have to convert that blob file into a base 64 string, and then you could use it inside of the image tag. Generally, working with files is not always the easiest thing in the world. So it's really powerful that there is something built into Firebase that handles files. The next videos are probably going to be on the topic of cloud functions, and there's going to be quite a few of them. A lot of this course and these video series are going to be centered around cloud functions. So everything with Firestore, with authentication, and with file storage is relatively simple because it's a matter of just using the built-in methods that are inside of the SDKs. But things are going to get a lot more complicated once we're building cloud functions. So we're going to distribute a lot more time, and I'm going to make a lot more videos on that topic. So just enjoy that things are still relatively simple right now.